Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar on how to keep your business cyber safe these holidays. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today and pay our respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today, and I'm joining from Ngunnawal and Ngambri land here in Canberra. So today we are lucky enough to have Dave, Shan, Corey and Gilbert to discuss ways organisations can protect themselves over the holidays. Being a time where most organisations have little to no human resources on call, how do we ensure we're set up to maintain essential functions and supply chains during and post the holidays? Our panellists are a mix of educators and industry practitioners in the cyber field. And to begin introductions, my name is Marina and I'm a consultant with Risk to Solution Group. And we are a company that specialises in providing our clients with integrated risk solutions. And I will be your moderator today. So to begin introductions, I would like to ask Dave Cohen to go ahead and introduce himself before moving on to Shan Sockenver, Corey Fraser and Gilbert Chi. So Dave, would you like to take it away?
Thanks, Marina, and it's really wonderful to be here this afternoon and welcome to our incredible audience and to be sharing the panel with, sharing the stage with our incredible panelists today. I am the chair of the Global Cybersecurity Special Interest Group for the ISRM, as one of the many hats that I do wear, and really looking to raise the level of awareness, raise the level of education, and look after our community, look after our environment to make sure that we protect ourselves as much as we possibly can over the holidays. So excited to have this discussion with you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Dave. Shan Sockenver, can we move over to you, please?
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm very glad to be part of this webinar and listen to everyone's kind of opinion. But I'm actually been in this city for more than 25 years. As a lead auditor of ISO 27000, and I started my career being like a very junior programmer and had a number of pivots in the last 25 years. And now I'm working as a cybersecurity and IT consultant across the like a different industry and been working in different continents. So hopefully today going to be very useful and informative kind of like I said webinar for everyone. And I'm more than happy to share my knowledge and learn from the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shan. And Corey, over to you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Marina. So I work with Shan and Gilbert here with Rezilens Cybersecurity Services based in Queensland. So I've been project manager there for going on a year now. It's been one of my first roles in the cybersecurity industry specifically, but have really loved my time there so far, getting to work with our customers, and I've learned so much, and it's been a really great experience. I'm passionate about this industry and really looking forward to some of the insights that will be able to be gleaned from today's discussion. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Corey. And now Gilbert Chi, last but not least, over to you.
Thanks, Marina. Yeah, my name is Gilbert Chi. I've got a GRC background in cybersecurity, and been working with Rezilens for 4 months now as the cybersecurity business development lead. And I'm looking forward to sharing and learning from the people on this panel. And
fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, and welcome to all of our audience. We do encourage you to submit any questions that you may have in the live Q&A feed that you can find. And to begin with, we're going to open to all of our panelists. What are the key trends and challenges you foresee in managing cybersecurity risks over the holidays? Shan, can we begin with you?
Thank you very much. Look, it's a very good question, but it's not easy to what angle we are going to start with. But basically, there are a couple of things I would like to share with you at the beginning, and some kind of like a misconcept which you are facing with. One of them, which basically people feel like, look, I'm small. I'm not going to be like a subject for any kind of cybersecurity attack. This is very, very wrong. And the thing is, everyone can be a victim of cybersecurity, especially SMEs, small and medium enterprise, because the bad actors they know that the big organization has a strong kind of like cybersecurity posture. So that's why everyone could be a subject, and especially small and medium enterprise. The second one, the question is how we can just somehow be cyber kind of like a resilience. Look, the stats out there is very interesting. The most important thing I would like to share with you is just instead of being reactive, we need to be proactive. And that's something always, it works in every kind of like a project, especially in cybersecurity. And the third one I would like to share with you, with everyone here, and I just want to pass on to other like participants here, is 90% of attacks comes from human error and from supply chain. If you look after those areas, you don't need to have too much technology. I'll leave it to you guys, but there are a lot of things to share with you today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shan. We've heard a message about being proactive, which is fantastic. And Dave, let's move over to you now.
Marina, that's really a great question. The key thing to understand, and echoing Shan's point of size is irrelevant. Larger organizations have a bigger target on their back because they're more publicly au fait in the public domain. Smaller organizations also have a large target on their back because generally their response and their infrastructure is a lot lower than that of the larger organizations. So for the smaller to medium-sized organizations, you're not exempt. You're still very much part of the party, and it's still very much important that you yourselves are aware of the things and the vulnerabilities that exist within your ecosystem. Opportunities on the rise. We're sort of slowing down a little bit as we enter the festive season. Hackers aren't. Hackers are rising up. They smell opportunity. They smell our relaxation as an opportunity to create those attacks. And unfortunately, those attacks turn into successful breaches. Be mindful of the situation that you're in. Be mindful that if your business is closing down, that if your business is reducing capability, make sure your infrastructure reduces the capability accordingly. Don't leave unnecessary doors open which provide vulnerabilities and access points for hackers to be able to enter your environment. Close all the doors that need to be closed, and make sure that that we don't leave any loose ends hanging when no one's being attended, where those aren't being attended to. We know that a hacker can be in an environment for extended periods of time before popping up and making themselves known. We don't know how long a hacker goes undetected within your ecosystem. So they are sort of lying low, identifying your patterns, looking at vulnerabilities, looking for opportunities. And when they identify an opportunity which results in a lapse of concentration, that's where they're going to pounce. So I think the key takeaway here is mindfulness is key, and hackers don't sleep.
Thanks, Dave. I almost hear the words "think like your attacker," which is a fun way of looking at it in a way if you can make it an exercise. And on that note, maybe Gilbert, we'll move over to you and have some of your thoughts about the key trends and the challenges that you foresee yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Dave has been saying regarding how we need to be vigilant with cybersecurity. I think it's really important that sometimes we drop the ball, and we've got to make sure that we're continuously being vigilant in what we do to keep the cyber posture more, how would you say, more protective for the organizations, especially with currently with the with the new with all these new breaches that's been happening this year, some really major big players. So it just shows that even the big players are letting the ball down. So we just got to be vigilant and be continuous checking and evaluating your cyber posture.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Gilbert. And Corey, over to you.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Yeah, I would probably just echo the prior sentiments. Dave makes an excellent point insofar as the adversaries in this space do not take time off around this period. If anything, they exactly as Dave mentioned, take advantage of a more relaxed, more distracted potential victim, let's say. So we'll move on towards the end of the presentation, or towards the end of the chat today, with a few specific tips. But I would say for the meantime, it's just watching as far as purchases that you're conducting online, making sure that the Wi-Fi that you might be connected to is secure and password protected, and that you're not conducting transactions over open Wi-Fi networks, for example. A lot of the adverse incidents that are happening in this space, as Shan mentioned, are a result of human factors, of elements of simple mistakes, easy mistakes to make, but mistakes that, if avoided, can surprisingly mitigate many of the adverse incidents that are happening in this space. So simple steps add up to much greater protection and a significant mitigation of risk.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Corey. Great points about having practical options around insider risk, because they're things that you can do yourself at home. And the people watching today potentially will take some of these away, which is what we hope to do. Now, Cheyenne, just to begin, we talked about larger organizations and we talked about smaller organizations. So the next question is, what is your most cost-effective tip for cyber safety over the holidays? Because smaller organizations can then begin to implement that, and that's the sort of thing that we want.
Look, basically, based on the experience we have seen in the last, especially 15 years, and the attacks on top of attack, and the way bad actors trying to get is basically trying to take the control of account, your account. If they, and all of this, like a phishing, smishing, all of the way, they're just trying. The most important part, they're just trying to get the control of your account. And what I would like to share, don't believe this, like the movies, they can catch that, like hackers, blah, blah, blah. This is not the real. If they get into your system, then they are in, as exactly gentleman mentioned. Sometimes we don't know, they are just in your system. They're just trying to just get lots of say information about your organization, and then they are just launching the attack. So basically, there are a number of ways. First of all, you need to make your account secure. How you want to make your account secure? There are a number of ways. If you give the key to castle, then basically you are losing the control of the organization. There are a number of like a principle I would like to share with you. One of them, we call it basically the zero trust or least privilege, right? Look, it is something you would like always. I would like to share with you this like experience. Do not trust anyone in your organization fully and completely, because there are some ways people that are just not deliberately, as an error, they are sharing the information. So, for instance, the case would be you are giving a key to castle, like to one of your senior accounts, your username and password. When you are on holidays, you are giving that password to one of your colleague, and that colleague is so excited about, say, a great kind of like a discount on some specific kind of like a product. And what happens? They click on that phishing email, and they get get hacked or attacked, and then voila, they got into your system, right? So first of all, try to keep your account as secure as possible. As Corey mentioned, there are a number of ways you can make it secure. First of all, try to have a strong password. That's something. And that strong password means that minimum 15 or 16 character, and minimum using different numbers, uppercase, and that sort of thing. If you can like Google it, you can find lots of like recommendation on that. Right. Keep your software and hardware up to date. You definitely, if there is update in your phone, it comes, download it straight away. When it comes to basically using Wi-Fi, you should be very vigilant. During the holidays, people we would like to use like a free Wi-Fi. Don't use it, especially when it comes to when you are in holidays, in the lounge or whatever. Those Wi-Fi is just a place that you can easily get just get punished. Put it this way, your account will be just stolen. Use a paid virus, antivirus. Don't go the free version of them. And as I said, try to just, and the second thing that I would like to share with you, after having a password, have the second factor of authentication using like SMS is not that secure, to be honest. Using like multi-factor authentication would be recommended. And yeah, look, there are a number of ways. Don't click on the emails, on the phishing emails. Hover on the email to see who is the sender. We have seen lots and lots of cases also saying I'm calling you from this, and your boss is just waiting for you for this. If you hover your mouse on your email, you will see that who's the sender, and you can easily pick it up. Is it phishing or not? And the point is, again, I'm just trying to emphasize on that. Basically, more than 90% of it comes from our error. And if we minimize that error to being vigilant with proper training, then basically you are just somehow protecting yourself against majority of, like I say, attempts, which normally that just happens everywhere. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Shan. And again, so many relevant, useful, practical points there. But Shan, just following on what you were saying, that the first point that you mentioned, insider threat is a massive vulnerability within organizations. And now, particularly going into the holiday season and going into the festive season, that zero trust philosophy within an organization is relevant now more than ever before. You know, we've got employees that maybe didn't get their Christmas bonus, that maybe didn't get their 13th check that they were expecting. So they may be feeling a little bit more disgruntled. The office is a little bit quieter at the moment. So opportunities could potentially be a lot greater for a disgruntled employee. You know, maybe they had one foot out of the organization already, and this sort of just tipped them over the scales. The boss is already on long leave, annual leave. So they're not going to pick this up until next year already. So these sorts of things we should all be mindful of. And just echoing your sentiments over there, is that we can never be too safe and we can never be too sure. Insider threat is a real problem. And Marina, going back to your original question, knowledge. Knowledge is a critical aspect where we often find ourselves falling short. Now, knowledge doesn't necessarily mean going out and get a master's in cybersecurity in the next couple of weeks before we close off for Christmas, or even doing a cyber course. Is getting information about the organization, about your infrastructure within your organization in a way that makes sense to you as a business owner, as a board director, as a C-suite manager, as someone responsible for the keys for the office, as someone responsible for the ongoing business continuity of the office. Get the information to you that makes clear and practicable sense. I'm going to relay a story, if I may. There was a young girl overseas who was an exceptional basketball player, but she wasn't doing very well at school. She was almost failing to the point where she was about to get kicked off the basketball team because she wasn't getting the grades required to stay on the basketball team. So the English teacher that she was failing her course with and the basketball teacher got together. And the English teacher came to the basketball court and taught the student on the basketball court. The student learned English on the basketball court in a way that the student understood and the way that the student interpreted the information. The student then passed the exam and managed to stay on the basketball team and actually excelled in the subject. The point that I make is that if the information that's being given to you doesn't make sense to you, don't palm it off as acceptable. Well, I'm assuming that person knows what they're talking about, and I'm assuming, and it sounds like my CISO or my chief information officer or my IT manager has got his bases covered because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but doesn't really make any sense to me. That's not good enough. It's got to be understood in a way that makes sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense to you, ask questions about the infrastructure. It doesn't always have to be a technical answer. You don't have to be able to recite the Essential 8 off pat and know what every single practice within the Essential 8 is. or ISO 27001. But you need to know as a business owner, as a business practitioner, as someone who's responsible for your organization, what does it mean for your business to be cyber safe? And you're not necessarily expected to know. A cardiologist doesn't need to know how to perform brain surgery. And it doesn't make one profession better than the other. It just makes them different. So my key takeaway, get knowledge. Understand that you're closing the doors over the period or reducing your capability over the period with the sound knowledge that you're in control of what you know. Bearing in mind there will still be things that you don't know what you don't know, but if we can minimize that as far as possible, you'd be one step better off than you were before you went away for the holidays.
Thank you both. And the next couple of questions are again directed to Dave and Shan. But following up on Dave's point about infrastructure, with the recent security of critical infrastructure legislation that has passed, we now know that board directors need to know more about cybersecurity than ever before. So on that note, very interested in your opinion, Shan and Dave, on what 5 things board directors should know about cyber physical and cyber digital threats that their organization might face for the coming year. Dave, let's go back to you and then over to Shan.
So thanks, Marina. I always like to give a little bit extra than I'm asked. So I'm actually going to give you 6 things, if that's okay. The first is a culture. If we don't have a culture of cybersecurity within our organization, these policies that have been brought down from the top are going to fall upon deaf ears. Many times individuals within an organization don't even know what cyber policies are, or what risk policies are within an organization. So it's important that not only does everybody across the organization, we've heard this ad nauseum, cybersecurity is a team sport, which in layman's terms means that every single person in the organization needs to play it. There are different positions in an organization, just like there are different positions in a team, and everyone has their own role to play. So it's very important that the organization adopts a culture of cybersecurity in some form or another. Many people within an organization need to understand not only what the policies and procedures are, but what they mean to them personally. Why do they need to follow those policies and procedures? And we can get into the concept of resilience as a separate webinar completely, but that's essentially the concept, is that we need to understand our role within the organization and what our impact is. The second part of that is education, and that's following on from the culture. So now we've got an awareness and now we've got an understanding of what cybersecurity is, why it's important to the organization, and everyone in the organization is across that. We need to develop a level of education within an organization. So whether that is from what is the essential 8, or what is a framework, what is maturity, what is a posture, what do these things mean within an organization, what is risk? It's important for people within an organization to have an innate understanding of factors that affect the continuity of the business, as well as what helps a business grow and what helps a business develop. We also need to know what can prevent a business from growing and what can prevent a business from growing. Everyone within an organization needs to be across that. So there will be varying levels and varying degrees and intensity of education required across the organization, but every single member in an organization needs to have some sort of level of education when it comes to cyber and risk. The third point that I'd like to make is draw a line in the sand, right? Understand where your organization is. It's more often than not going to be one of those stones that you lift up, look underneath what's underneath it and quickly want to put it back. But unfortunately, we need to know what's under the stone, and we need to know where we are. However good, bad, or ugly our environment is at the moment, we can't fix it and we can't get it better unless we know where we are. There are many, many tools which Corey will chat to in a second about how we can do those sorts of things. But it's very, very important, I can't emphasize this enough, is that you cannot grow and build on a cyber maturity. You cannot improve if you don't know where you are. and you don't know where you want to get to, essentially. You've got to have a target. It's one thing to know where you are, but it's another to have an improvement plan, to be able to know where you want to get to and how you're going to get there, and what resources is it going to take within the framework of the organization's tolerance and appetite, budget, constraint, industry, economy. All of those factors will determine where an organization would want to get to. From a top-down approach, it's important for businesses to also understand the quantification of their cyber risk. What is a cyber breach going to cost me if I were to suffer a cyber breach today? Now, this is sort of where the C-suites and the board come into play, because they are more au fait with ones and zeros in terms of dollars and less in terms of ones and zeros in terms of binary. So they need to know exactly, if we were to suffer a breach today, firstly, how likely are we to suffer a breach? And what is the impact that that's going to have on my organization? Also, will it affect the entire organization? Will it affect parts of the organization? If I've got $1 million to spend on cybersecurity uplift, where do I spend it? Where do I get the biggest bang for my buck? How do I know that the money that I'm spending is going to give me the return on investment that I so desire? I've seen countless organizations that have come to me on the back of a cyber breach and saying, but Dave, we've spent millions upgrading our cyber infrastructure. But had you spent it in the right place, you could have spent a fraction of what you've spent and had a far greater outcome had you just known where to spend your money and get the biggest bang for your buck. And then the sixth piece that I want to chat to before I hand over to my learned friend is insurance. Don't see insurance as a mitigation strategy. Insurance is an aid to help resilience. Insurance isn't part of the prevention plan. It's part of the response plan. So by claiming that you've got robust cyber insurance, which we could have a whole webinar on cyber insurance alone, but to claim that you've got a robust cybersecurity insurance policy that will help you get back to business as usual, I can guarantee you it won't, because there are vulnerabilities in your policy, there are gaps in your policy, and there are shortfalls in your policy, almost certainly. So you will never get back to where you were before, if even remotely close, if you've got the luxury of even having cyber insurance. So don't use cyber insurance as a sleep easy. Use that as a crutch to aid that recovery back to some level of where you are. Cyber insurance is not like motor vehicle insurance. If you get a ding on your motor vehicle, you send your car off to the panel beater, they take off the panel, they put a new panel on, and your car's as good as new. Cyber insurance is not the same. There will always be residual fallout after that. Shane, if I could hand over to you for your comment.
Thank you very much, Dave. That was a good insight. Basically, getting back to your question, Marina, there are a number of ways echoing Dave's points in terms of looking at the cyber in a more strategic level. First of all, I would like to share the terms of cyber aware or risk aware organization. The thing is, at the beginning of your journey, you need to create a culture, which basically, based on that culture, your organization should be risk aware, which means that a risk approach from the A to Z of all activity will be something everyone should follow. And that's why we call it in cybersecurity, everyone has a role, everyone is responsible. If you make everyone in your organization responsible based on the roles and responsibilities, then your organization will be cyber aware, will be more cyber resilient. Would be proper training, knowledge, trying to make your employees knowledge better and better in terms of a different type of attacks and all those sort of things. There are a number of recommendation I would like to share. First of all, as exactly Dave mentioned, try to understand where you're sitting at. Have a proper assessment of your current cybersecurity posture and have a development plan for it, right? And that should be part of your strategic planning, and trying to align your cyber strategy with your business strategy and IT strategy. If there is no alignment, then basically you would see a lot of gaps, right? The other things I would like to share is try to communicate with this similar industry, different industry, and learn from them, learn from their mistake. That's why all the time you need to just like look at the news. And for instance, the Optus, Medicare, what happened to them, right? Then that's going to help you basically to just somehow be one step ahead to not have the same kind of mistake, or if you are doing the same mistake, trying to prevent it. But always, there is no silver bullet in cybersecurity. If you do the best, spend millions and millions of dollars, there is some possibility of getting some stuff like it. And that's why we call it plan for the best, but prepare for the worst, which means that basically what happens, you need to always have, we call it like, say, response plan. Could be your business continuity plan, could be your disaster recovery plan. Always you need to prepare if something happens, how you can make your business operational, right? Using the different, we have lots and lots of things for that, like having redundancy, that sort of stuff, right? As I said, that we call it like it, and we can go deeper, have a deeper conversation on that, but a lot of things. And try to orchestrate cybersecurity across organization, having a proper plan, having a proper KPI, and try to just make sure that you are improving your cybersecurity posture through having, as I said, having the right strategy, creating the culture, and making your organization, as I said at the beginning, cyber aware or risk aware. And look, one more thing I would like to share: cybersecurity is all about risk management. And if you have a proper risk management methodology in place, if you understand the value of the asset and your crown jewels and come up with the proper response plan for each of them, some of them, as exactly mentioned, could be you are facing a different kind of risk, right? Some of them could be mitigation, some of them could be transferring, going just doing the insurance, transferring the risk to someone, and some of them sometimes would be accepting risk. Having a proper strategy against each of risk, which basically those risks threats your assets. To understand that and try to come up basically with the proper response strategy to make sure that, okay, we are looking after it. But having said that, again, there is no silver bullet. So always you should be vigilant.
Thank you for your points both. I'm hearing embracing risk as opportunity by practice, practice, practice. And also, again, the point about updating your knowledge, Shan, from what you were saying about consistently revising case studies before they happen. Thank you both very much. We'd like to move this panel discussion to open up to Gilbert and Corey, who are specialists in governance, risk and compliance and vulnerability scanning. Now, for someone like me who hasn't worked in the cyber realm for a long time, and perhaps as some of our attendees also identify with, I'd like to ask Gilbert to give a definition to begin with. So what is vulnerability scanning?
Okay, vulnerability scanning is like a process like pen testing, right? But you're not going in depth where a lot of manual pen testing capabilities are different to the vulnerability assessment. So with vulnerability scanning, that the solutions that we have at Rezilens is more towards to our web applications or websites. We check it. It checks against the top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities. It also goes a little bit more in depth in DMARC, where you have also leaked emails. So if your emails have been leaked onto the dark web, the Rezilens vulnerability scanning will pick those problems up. Other things that it will also check is what applications are you running in the background on your web solutions, and that's really important too, because if you've got applications that can be picked up by the vulnerability scan on what apps you're running, it can actually show the vulnerabilities there. There might be some apps that are easy to or are known to have problems, and what versions they might have also vulnerabilities with the versions they're running. So those are the things that a vulnerability scan could pick up. The other thing too is that the benefits of vulnerability scanning is that, let's say if a person wants to get their website on the market, right, but they just don't have the large investment to do a full pen test on a website. Well, vulnerability scanning solution will be able to manage that, because it checks against the top 10 common problems, and the pricing is a lot more cheaper than having a full pen test solution.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And this is a question that we'd love to hear from your point of view, Gilbert and Corey, about what your thoughts are around good governance over the holidays when it comes to the cyber sector. Corey, would you mind opening this?
I have a short presentation here where we'll just go over a few tips to do with simple strategies that, if implemented, should make a big difference in mitigating the risk over this period. So, as we touched on towards the beginning, I mentioned about public Wi-Fi. Obviously, this is fraught with danger, especially if you're making purchases and essentially transferring potentially sensitive information over open Wi-Fi that isn't password protected. So that's your shopping center, that's your doctor's office, that's your even some councils now have implemented public Wi-Fi in open spaces in various major cities. This, while convenient, is, as I said, fraught with risks. So I would say whenever there is sensitive information being exchanged or submitted, best practice is to make sure that you're connected to a secure connection. So that's your 4G or your 5G on your phone, or that's your home internet connection. That's generally safest. Multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication is super important. So this is basically whenever a password is being entered, it'll essentially ask you for a second kind of confirmation. Typically, that'll be an app on your phone where you'll enter that roughly that 6-digit code, basically confirming that you are the person who's trying to make this transaction or log into this account. Another really simple one is when you are surfing on the internet, particularly when it comes to e-commerce websites, and you're looking to make purchases, that little padlock icon up the top left of your browser is going to be really important. It'll also be represented there by the HTTPS at the beginning of the URL. So that's just a way of ensuring an added layer of protection, if you will, that the site that you are surfing and looking to make a transaction on is reasonably secure. Then, of course, simple ones like clicking on suspicious links in emails or messages. Definitely make sure that the people who are contacting you are who they say they are, that you are looking out for potential giveaways in malicious messages and links, like spelling and grammatical errors. Look at the sender of an email and confirm that it is the email address that you are used to seeing this person send emails to you from, for example. We've seen plenty of examples very recently of increasingly sophisticated phishing and smishing attempts. So yeah, definitely important to be vigilant. As we've referenced plenty already, this is a period of the year where the attacks that are coming and the emphasis that's being placed on here as far as people falling victim to these kinds of attacks, it's even more prevalent. So you've just got to be extra cautious. Moving on to our penultimate point, third-party payment services like your PayPal, your Apple Pay, and your Google Pay are going to be just an extra strategy that you can use to ensure that the payments you're making are as secure as can be. PayPal has obviously been around for a while, generally regarded as being a relatively highly secure payment method. So if you're using a consistent payment platform, a third-party service like that, that's a great way to ensure that you're staying protected when making those transactions. And then finally, keep a track of your bank statement. Thankfully, our banking system here in Australia is set up so that if you are monitoring and you do spot a potentially malicious transaction or an erroneous transaction, and that you may be the victim of potential fraud or financial crime, that there are mediations, there are protections in place to prevent these sorts of things from happening and to handle the situation if and when they do happen. But still, obviously, prevention is better than cure. Best to just keep a lookout, especially around this period of time, for potential transactions that may not be legitimate. So those are some of the tips. And you did mention, Marina, I'll just finish off by talking on the risk and compliance angle, and then touching on what Gilbert mentioned just earlier about those vulnerability scanning approaches or tools that we can use. If you are in a sort of commercial context and you are perhaps running a small business here in Australia, beyond those tips that we touched on just then, which are obviously applicable in an individual context, in a personal context, but then also a business context. Beyond that, Dave obviously earlier mentioned the Essential 8 framework. So this is basically has been set out by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, obviously affiliated with the federal government here in Australia, as basically 8 general areas of cybersecurity that, if adhered to and if implemented correctly, will go a long way in ensuring that you are best protected as possible as a small business in this country from potential adverse incidents in a cybersecurity context. So I've obviously got here staying safe online and avoiding data theft has really started to become a serious concern for many businesses in this country. The problem is, and this is partly due to us and our industry as well, but oftentimes the customers we might be dealing with or the general public aren't really sure how to begin that journey and what those first steps look like towards better cyber resilience. So that's something we would recommend as a start, as a bit of a checkup, if you will, is assessing your compliance with those Essential 8 controls and domains. So beyond those basics, implementing a framework like the Essential 8 is a great first step, and that's something we at Rezilens, in collaboration with Risk2 Solution, do help our clients with as one of our services. And then finally, as my colleague Gilbert touched on, vulnerability scanning is another great way to cover from the technical side of things some of the risks that could be present on your website and on your domain. If our vulnerability scan tool can pick it up, you can absolutely believe that there are adversaries out there who can also detect those vulnerabilities and more than take advantage of them, unfortunately, with fairly minimal effort. So the reality is that there are definitely simple strategies that you can implement. And thankfully, there's some great support from government and public sector in assisting private sector and assisting small businesses in this country, like the Essential 8. And we at Rezilens have tried to ensure that our services and the assistance that we can provide is affordable, and that the tips and the tools and the services that we're offering are actually understandable and really making cybersecurity something that's actually doable and achievable for everyday businesses here in Australia. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Marina, thanks very much.
I've certainly learned a lot about what I could do during that presentation, as well as Shan. I have certainly logged onto the free airport Wi-Fi before, so thank you very much for that. Gilbert, is there anything you'd like to add with thoughts around good governance from your end?
What I see is probably missing in a lot of organizations is the people process capabilities. And I think it's important that organizations should not focus their whole entire game based on technical capabilities, like having firewalls and all the SIEM, SOAR, XDR solutions. I feel that if you don't have like a GRC in process, there will leave a huge gap in your cyber posture.
Thank you. We're sadly beginning to run out of time, and I can see that there are some questions submitted in the Q&A that we'd like to get to now. The first question is, what is government doing to assist industry in dealing with cyber risks? Would anyone like to come off mute and begin with that question? The question is, what is government doing to assist industry in dealing with cyber risks?
I think it's important to understand we've got an incredibly supportive government that is working very, very closely with us. When I say us, I'm talking about industry, I'm talking about business, I'm talking about the Australian economy, to provide tools, to provide information. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre is one of very many go-to points for organisations. Home Affairs is doing tremendous work with private sector and the public sector to be able to educate, uplift, provide information and assist where possible to improve the maturity of our cyber posture. Our Minister of Cybersecurity and Home Affairs, Minister Claire O'Neill, is hell-bent on making Australia one of the safest cybersecurity countries in the world, which we are greatly appreciative of. And us as an industry will support her endeavours in any way that we possibly can to get this message across. But I think that for small organisations that somehow feel lost, that somehow feel, trying to wade through this sinking sand of what do I do during headlights sort of scenario. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre website is probably the best place to start off with for individuals, for companies, our government, and from a federal, from a state, and from a local perspective. Provides a heap of information, and we're very grateful to have an infrastructure that we do have at present to be able to support us.
Look, let's do not forget that we are accountable for our cybersecurity, so not government, right? That's the most important things we would like to share with you at the beginning. So basically, government basically looking at the regulation. But you can just, they are offering a number of regulations about essential aids, ISO 27000. But this is us to implement that. There is there is assumption that people, if I'm using cloud, for instance, I'm secure. No, you're not. If you're using cloud, and if you're just you're putting like a very simple password, this is your responsibility. It's our responsibility, not cloud, not Amazon, not Azure, right? If I'm not, for instance, encrypting my data in the cloud, Amazon or Azure, they are not responsible. I'm responsible. Getting back to your point, government has done a good job. Based on my experience, I've worked in different countries. Australia is one of the best in terms of regulation, right? And in terms of education and trying to just offer more knowledge to SMEs. We are seeing some sort of good movement. I think is not that enough, to be honest with you. They have started a very good practice, but I reckon in terms of a support, government can do a lot better, right? And that's something we would like to share with government. For instance, in some cases, I've seen government trying to just somehow compete with some sort of with cybersecurity companies and trying to, but they're forgetting that they are the regulator. They are not a cybersecurity provider. But I reckon in terms of governance can help a lot. In terms of as I said, trying to educate people, using different medias. But we have personally, I've seen a lot of good improvement in the last 2 years here in Australia.
Thank you both very much. And maybe Gilbert or Shan, you'd like to answer the next question, which is an anonymous, but what are some small cybersecurity mistakes you've seen that have led to significant consequences?
I would say, again, what I mentioned, having a people process capabilities with some of the major breaches that's recently happened. Would have picked up some of these problems with Optus and with Medibank. If you had an auditing process, some sort of continuous process of checking your cyber posture, they would have picked up some of these vulnerabilities. So it's really important to have some sort of GRC process within the framework of improving your cyber posture.
If I can weigh in on top of what Gilbert was saying, absolutely, Gilbert, that's fantastic advice. If I could give our audience a practical takeaway, we've just recently had a client, local government client, who unfortunately suffered a major breach. Cameras, surveillance cameras, water treatment facility, all of these sorts of things were taken under were taken under control of a hack, and it was an opportunistic hack. It wasn't a hacker looking for ransomware. It wasn't a hacker looking for Bitcoin. It was someone who was trolling the web looking for an opportunity. Anyway, we were brought in to do an investigation, and what we found from the investigation was, and it was to my point that I made earlier, this particular organization spent a lot of money previously upgrading their cyber maturity and upgrading their cyber posture. And upon the findings of the investigation, we found out that the vulnerability was caused by an instruction that was given to an employee to install a firewall. The employee didn't follow instruction, didn't install the firewall, and nothing was ever followed up to ensure that the firewall was installed. That provided the vulnerability, and that provided the access point for the breach to be successful. So to your point, these are small little things that don't cost any money, that don't cost any extra significant amounts of investor and time. But having said that, these are the sorts of things that we've got to look for. They don't always have to be the big ticket items. Let's make sure that all the little bits and pieces are in place, which would make a big difference. Sorry, Shan, to you.
No, yeah, look, echoing your and Gilbert's point, basically, there are some small kind of like same mistake going to create big, consequences, right? So for instance, I've seen lots of cases when the organization didn't just update the patches, and that made problem. At the same time, for instance, as I said, the zero trust we mentioned, the people should have access to some sort of the account, and they had access and they got breached. Training would be another thing. You can with some sort of a small kind of courses, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes kind of reminder again. And also look, in terms of advanced ransomware, we have seen a lot. Backup, not going to take too much of our time, but this is very crucial, right? If basically you have a backup and you have an encrypted backup somewhere and keeping that data safe, even if you get some sort of get breached, your data get breached, at least you can have your business operational. That's in terms of sharing your data, your data breach with let's say with Croc, that's another problem. But having said that, at least you can keep your business operational, but proper a backup and proper a backup policy. And I just want to add a couple of things in terms of GRC. Look. This is very important to understand. We have a threat and we have vulnerabilities. Threat is something outsider. Vulnerability is our weakness. When these two marry together, risk happens. So the thing is, we are trying to just somehow, with all these policy, procedures, government, technology, we are trying to somehow minimize our vulnerabilities. So that's something always we should have a look at it. So how we can minimize the vulnerability, how we can address those vulnerabilities using a vulnerability scanning tools, using a GRC. This kind of tools going to help us to just somehow reduce some vulnerabilities and be more prepared and cyber resilient.
Thank you very much, all. And we are coming to the closing of today. So I would like to go around, starting with Corey, one sentence for a takeaway today, or something that you'd really like the attendees to walk away with.
Yeah, wonderful. I would say when talking about cybersecurity from a professional context or even a personal context, an individual context, it's important to understand that we're really just dealing with risk management and mitigation at the end of the day. And I think another potential mistake our industry's made in the past is talking about this in very technical terms that tends to put people off and scare them away. And if we really are going to mitigate risk and reduce the chances of these events happening again and again, we need to understand that everyone has a role, and it's important to communicate with each other transparently and in simple human terms. This affects everyone, so it's important that we speak about it openly and transparently and make ourselves understood as best as we can.
Thank you, Corey. Dave, your takeaway?
Get skin in the game. Start your journey. It's a minefield of vulnerabilities out there. You don't have to know them all, but start your journey. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take one step forward in that direction to becoming a little bit more cyber aware. You don't have to get a degree. You don't have to become a genius. You don't have to become a technical genius. You don't have to become a technical master. You have to have an awareness. And the onus, to Shan's point that he made earlier, is that there's certain factors that are out of our control and there's certain factors that are within our control. And what is within our control is to start your journey to becoming more aware. There are many, many, many on-ramps to get this information of varying degrees of technical ability. Being not technically minded is no longer an excuse. That doesn't stand up to a breach. That's not going to save your business. There are ways of gathering information and gathering knowledge that are available at varying degrees of technical ability. So find out what they are, reach out to any one of us on the panel. We'll be glad to share them with you. In fact, we're very willing to share that with you. And most of them actually don't cost anything. So get your skin in the game and start your journey.
Thanks, Dave. Shan, Gilbert, one sentence from both of you.
Just stay aware and be vigilant. Aware is like, it's not technical. It's just like, for example, if you're going to be typing your password, keep your password private. Don't leave your password with a sticky note on your monitor. Just basic fundamental awareness and vigilance. If you're out shopping and you've got your phone and you're paying with your phone, again, be vigilant. Make sure there is no one around. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Let's put it this way. I would use your credit card details and pay, or use cash, during these periods, because a lot of these have a lot of vulnerabilities and risks involved. If you want to make payment on your phone and you're using a private network, a public Wi-Fi network, don't. Stop that. Go home. Use your computer. As long as your computer is protected and has all the basic functions, then use that. Stay safe. That's all.
Thank you, Shan. One last point from you.
Echoing the other gents' points, basically, as I mentioned before, like, there is no silver bullet, right? So with all those sort of things, we are just recommending. We know that you may get targeted and you may get some sort of like being a victim of like any type of attack, right? So be prepared for, as I said, always be prepared, right? You don't need to have like a very deep cybersecurity knowledge. As long as you are having basic protection, as exactly mentioned, being vigilant, being cyber aware, trying to always upskill yourself. And you don't need to just, as I said, even if you have a small organization, right? You don't need to recruit someone to just be just a part of your team. You're basically, what will happen, you can have using some sort of like a service which company like Rezilens just providing like as a virtual CISO to helping you just maybe 2 or 3 hours a week or that sort of thing to just provide you with some sort of good consultation to provide you roadmap. Yeah, and look, if you are just going like a whack-a-mole, that's another thing. If you are just going whack-a-mole, then always you will have a problem. But if you have a plan, if you know where you are sitting at and making a plan where you are going to, and just have it like a continuous improvement instead of just whack-a-mole, then definitely in a shorter time, you will have more success and just be more resilient.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. And a huge thank you to our panelists for your insights and time. And thank you to everyone who participated and asked questions to our panelists. A recording of this session will be available through the online event link, and the resources mentioned today will be sent to you via post-webinar email. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.